The Road to Zihuatanejo. Well, hello. It's Fred here. Let me put this camera on its little pedestal and hope it doesn't fall off. Let's see if that lasts. Oh my God, it's working. Okay. This is a chapter from my work in progress. And as you know, the chapter is called The Road to Zihuatanejo. The Road to Zihuatanejo. Bob and Billy had a way of making me disbelieve my own ears and eyes. Actually, the sentence goes, Bob and Billy had a way of making me disbelieve my own eyes and ears. When I was 8 or so, I began to fixate on the Gauguin prints shellacked to the wall of the first floor bathroom. And I mean shellacked. When we moved to Dry Gulch in 1965, Dry Gulch being the name Frank gave Greenlawn, we'd return from any given vacation, and once we'd cross Pulaski Road, Frank would say, "It's Dry Gulch." My mother decided the monochrome hue of the bathroom walls was unbearable. She went to the catch-all drawer in the kitchen and pulled out the rubber-banded art postcards my grandmother had been sending her since 1947. Assembling about 70 images from the Louvre, the cloisters, the Vatican, and any cities met, Mom bought tubs of shellac. She sliced and diced and covered each vertical surface in the bathroom with Renaissance paintings, images of saints, alpine views, old ads, political flyers from the Wilson campaign, tribal dancers, ballet dancers, public house rules, and Gauguin's girls. I didn't know Gauguin's girls were girls. They looked like they could separate my eyebrows from my forehead with a scalpel, and they were looking at me whenever I sat on the psychedelic painted bowl with flower power inked on the base. Mom had invited friends to scrawl sayings on non-shellacked surfaces. The edges of the shower had, "Save water, shower with your steady." They drew flowers of the soft draft dodgers, They drew flowers of the sort draft dodgers saw instead of bullets. The postcards and posters began to buckle. Our first floor bathroom was trippier than a dune buggy, and the staring eyes of the warriors the Frenchman saw in Tahiti, which were the eyes of the girls he was ogling, always stared at me. It's hard to tinkle when your soul is being penetrated by 3 primitives peering around palm fronds. I took action. My observers were on a section of wall just above the sink and below the mirror. I was just tall enough to put my finger on each of their eyes and scratch them out with my nail. Their faces were intact, but they couldn't see. Since these accusing eyes were at such a low level, it was weeks before my mother said, at the supper table, "Who scratched the eyes of the Gauguin girls out?" I thought she was talking about something on the news. "Oh, my God," I said. "Did you scratch them out?" she said. I was picturing some fiend in the subway taking a penknife to the eyes of female commuters. "What? Did you scratch the eyes out of the women in the painting?" I hadn't been faring well that night. I'd spilled milk and Mom had said, "God damn it to hell." Then Bob spilled milk and Mom said, "God damn it to hell." "Did you?" said Mom. I didn't answer. I realized she had discovered the removal of the eyes of the people in the painting, but I hadn't known they were women. They were men staring at me. "You did that, didn't you?" Mom said. "Yes, I did, but I didn't say I didn't know they were women." "Why did you scratch their eyes out?" "They were staring at me. It's a painting. They can't see you going to the bathroom." My father added, "They can't now." Mom was nicer the next day. The next time I peed, I saw the eyes had been filled in with the color green. "I got a green magic marker," Mom said that night. "They're wearing sunglasses." She had forgiven me. One day, pooping this time, my deposit fell in a shiver as I noticed the Gauguin painting next to the one I'd marred, and Mom had improved, had all the eyes of its figures missing, the little solid circles of white, where their irises and... One day, pooping this time, my deposit fell in a shiver as I noticed the Gauguin painting next to the one I'd marred, and Mom had improved, had all the eyes of its figures missing. Little solid circles of white were where their irises and pupils had been. At dinner this night, Mom spilled the milk with my arm, which she had gripped as she yanked me out of my chair. God damn it, look at this, look. Mom brought, or is it take, her grammar still informs my thinking, to the bathroom. Mom brought, or is it take, her grammar still informs my thinking, me, to the bathroom. That sentence is all screwed up. Mom brought me, or is it take, her grammar still informs my thinking, to the bathroom, where she pointed to the new absences. The scratches were, if anything, larger in scope than they'd been a few hours earlier. The white orbs went from brow to cheekbone. Why the hell would you do this, Mom said. I didn't do it. Who did it? I don't know. Are you lying? No. I don't believe you. I didn't do it. For crying out loud. They can't see you using the toilet. I didn't do it. Back at the table, Mom said. He says he didn't do it. Did any of you see who did it? My brothers said they had not. If it wasn't you, who did it? Mom said to me. I don't know, I said. 40 years later, Bob volunteered that he'd done it just to see the effect it would have on Mom. In the intervening decades, of course, a time of great change for our nation, Mom would say, and you scratched the eyes out of the Gauguin girls. She'd grin. But I felt I had not done the second batch of girls. The reader will notice I said I felt I hadn't committed the second transgression. The reader will notice I said I felt I hadn't committed the second transgression. I became convinced as the weeks and months passed that I had, in some automaton moment, been fool enough to risk the maternal wrath by scratching out the eyes of Gauguin's other prey. The green magic marker applied to the second set was jagged, indicating the fury with which my mother performed her second act of adjustment. 5 years or so later, the poster of the World War I submarine and the words, "They kept the sea lanes open," fell, warped to the floor, and Mom removed all the art photos and groovy scrawlings. It now looked like a bathroom in a New England bed and breakfast. No hippie influence, no grand tour postcards, no marks of a child meeting modern art with craven claws. I don't know if Billy really believes the things he told me, that my favorite nun in nursery school had been found in the basement of St. Hilda's with a bottle of old Granddad, that the swish-plop, a dwarf with no legs who walked on his fists, would swish and plop through campgrounds until he found an open tent and pummeled its occupants to death with outsized fists. I don't know if he really believed that my father, whose car Billy and I were in as he was telling me this, was blind drunk. It was on a drive to Zihuatanejo in 1971. The Frost car was ahead of ours. If it had not been, I do believe Mom would have turned around at the wooden bridge over a puddle. But the Frost drove on it, and Mom braved the 2 wooden slats the tires had to stay on as we swayed over the murky water of unknown depth. When we got to the other side, she did something she never did. She got out and let Dad drive. "I'm petrified," she said. Billy, in the back with me, got that look of his. "Oh, this will be good, Fred. Do you know how much Courtney's had to drink?" I was 11. Billy had just turned 13, and his lifelong penchant for mischief had hardly deserted him. He caught Bob's eye. Bob himself might have been getting nauseous at this point. He put his head under a blanket. Sanborn's guidebook had an entire chapter called The Road to Zihuatanejo. "I am not doing the Road to Zihuatanejo," Mom said, getting into the passenger side. We all knew what was coming after the wooden bridge over the bottomless puddle. The 1-lane 3-mile road along the edge of a mountain. "It's too early for Dad to drink," I said. "Isn't it?" said Billy, beaming. "They weren't drinking today," I said. "They were up late last night," Billy said. "You ever heard of a hangover?" "Dad went to bed early last night," I said. "Hunter, Lynn, and Courtney and Joy," said Billy, and no child is as menacing as one who invokes the first names of the adults in charge, "were all supposed to get together at the hotel bar after we went to sleep." This was not at all an unrealistic assumption, not that Billy assumed the truth of what he was telling me. "I'd have noticed it if he'd gotten up and gone out," I said. My mother said, "Courtney, do remember it's 1 lane. "That I do, madam," said Dad. Hearing that, I buried my head in my blanket. "Remember the pig parties, Fred?" said Billy. "All the martini glasses sitting around in corners the next morning? Who do you think was slugging 'em down the night before?" "He's not drunk," I said. "Science Journal says you're still drunk in the morning if you'd had more than 3 glasses of rum before 11:30 the night before." "You read Science?" Dad had a subscription. "The New York Times quoted Science," said Billy. "If a car comes the other way," I heard Mom saying, "I will be able to back up," said Dad. He added, "You have yielded the wheel to me." "I have," said Mom. Although I'd buried my head in my blanket, I knew Mom was staring straight ahead at the open sky beyond the mountain top we were progressing along and not looking at the precipitous descent just outside the passenger door. Sanborn, Dad said. Sanborn. Sanborn's book had detailed the tumbles cars took down the wrong side of the road to Zihuatanejo. Sanborn had repeated every few paragraphs, "Don't panic." The last sentence of the chapter was, You'll relax once you arrive, but en route, cuidado. He's shaking, Billy said. The Frost car was going as slowly as the fly buzzing around Henry Fonda's head in the first 12 minutes of Once Upon a Time in the West. If a car came the other way, our car would have to lead the Frost car in backing up. Billy said, if you think he's bad going forward, think of him backing up. 20 minutes or so later, we'd pulled into the grounds of the Hotel Sotavento, proceeding down its driveway, steep as the incline on the Coney Island Cyclone, but safe as the Kansas Plains in comparison to the cliffside thoroughfare we just left. Now, Lynn said, as we all got out, we can freshen up and go back to town for a drink. Mom did something she hardly ever did. Without a damn or a god, she shouted, "No fucking way!"